Well, it's a beautiful, bright, sunny day here in southeast Oklahoma. Hey y'all, I'm Jess. Welcome to LJM Farms. So I recently constructed a high tensile electric fence, and the main purpose of that was so that I could graze this field here, and more specifically so that I could strip graze it. Now what I'm standing in here is a field. It's about 22 acres, and it's primarily used as a hay field. I can usually get 2 cuttings off of it for sure, and sometimes I'll get a third, but the last few years what I have been doing is, instead of getting that last cutting, I've just been letting it grow, and then I'll turn the cows in here and let them graze the stockpile after these grasses have gone dormant when it cools off. Now the downside to that is, they're not going to eat quite as much of it as if I strip grazed it. So what I've learned is that strip grazing can typically get you double the amount of animal unit grazing days. So that sounded pretty good to me, and I've always wanted to try it. So this is my first year to try to strip graze warm season stockpile grasses. Now there's 2 other benefits to strip grazing the way I'm doing it here. And one of those things is I don't have to have a back fence. My water is not here in this field. They have to travel pretty good ways to get water, so I don't put up a back fence. So that's one thing I don't have to worry about. I'm just leapfrogging these poly wires. As I take one out to give them a fresh strip, I will immediately step over my next poly wire and put in the new one. And then that way the next day all I have to do is take the other one up and I have a fresh strip. Now my strip sizes, I'm just trying to give them 2 days. And there's a lot of debate there, and you can move these cows 4 times a day if you have time. I don't have that time. I have a full-time job, so I like to at least give them a day worth of forage, 2 days, and maybe even 3.5. I probably wouldn't go any more than 3.5, just because there's some research out there that says every 3.5 days, they need a little bit of boost in protein to help keep the rumen functioning. So yeah, like I mentioned, these are warm season grasses, and primarily in this area that's going to be Bermudagrass. I have a lot of coastal Bermudagrass in this field. There's a little bit of Bahia. There are some native grasses in here also. I have a few clumps of, like I said, clumps, it's not really enough to count, of big blue stem. And there's also a lot of purple top tridents. I just call it purple top. I think it's also called grease grass. And there's also a lot of crabgrass in here. But what I'm finding is that the cows don't really eat the stockpiled crabgrass, or the dormant crabgrass. And I think the main reason for that is if you let this crabgrass go for so long, you get a lot of seed heads and stems where those stems just lay over and they create a mat. And so them cows don't really like to graze those stems. And that's just one thing I'm finding if there's a really thick area where there's a lot of crabgrass. I did notice a few cows actually getting into that and getting those stems, so maybe the rest of them will catch on. But again, they're primarily eating the Bermudagrass in this field. That seems to stockpile the best out of the introduced grasses anyway. So yeah, you'll see some aerial footage here. So I've tried doing this a few different ways. I've done it on the side by side, stringing out the wire and setting the posts. And if I was going to do this every day, I would absolutely have something rigged up on the side by side to hold my post and hold my poly wire reel. I think that would really make it easy and make it quick putting this in. The last 2 or 3 moves I've done here, I've just all done it by hand. I mean, this is, when I first started strip grazing this field, my distance of my poly wire I was having to run was about 400 feet. Now I'm at about 900 to 950 feet. And that's a pretty good distance, but it's still doable by foot. And so I've done it that way the last few times by foot, and I'm not running over the stockpile that way with the side by side. But the only thing is, I'm having to put out about 14 posts per strip. I'm not counting the distance in between my posts so much. I'm just stepping off maybe 20 to 25 steps, whatever looks good. Sometimes I have to adjust that because there are a lot of humps and uneven areas in here, and I just don't want the wire too low that the cows are tempted to jump over it. But they respect the hot wire pretty good, so I haven't had that problem yet. So yeah, it's taking 14 to 15 posts, and 10 posts you can carry pretty comfortably under your arm. 14, it don't sound like much more, but that adds up pretty quick. And it can be a little cumbersome trying to carry 14 posts and a reel to roll it up or unroll it. The other thing I've done is I've reeled up the wire, left the post in, leapfrogged the wire that I'll be using next, rolled out that poly wire without putting post in, then come back around, pick up my post, then go back over the wire again, then set in my post. The only bad thing about that is you're basically making 4 trips across this field. So, you know, if you like to do a lot of walking, it'd be good for you. I'm definitely getting some exercise, but so yeah, the past few times I've just carried those posts under my arm and reeled it up. A little bit cumbersome towards the end, but it's doable. So yeah, I've been grazing this for probably a week and a half now. It is December the 9th. You know, so the whole idea here is to save hay. Well, we have standing hay here, but it costs much more to take a tractor and a rake and a baler over this field and roll that hay up and then come back and have to put it back out to them with a tractor or whatever later on, to where, you know, I can just let them do the harvest and let the cows do the work. And typically, even just letting the cows in here and graze this in the past, I can get to at least, you know, Thanksgiving week, sometimes December 1st before I have to start putting out hay. And like I said, here it is, December 9th. We're not quite halfway through this field yet. So I'm thinking I'll probably be able to get another 2 to 3 weeks out of this field. So I've definitely doubled my grazing days, because usually in a few weeks of just letting them have this whole field without strip grazing it, it would definitely be done. And the reason for that is they're gonna trample on a lot of this. They're gonna lay on it. They're gonna, you know, poop and pee on it. So it's gonna go. They're gonna go through it pretty quick. Even though it's gonna look like there's a lot of forage out there, they're not gonna want to eat it. So yeah, I'm hopefully the week of Christmas. That's my goal, is to make it to the week of Christmas before I have to start putting out hay. And yeah, if I make it to that, it's a success. If I don't make it to that, it's still a success, because I will have gone at least, you know, 3 weeks without, 2 to 3 weeks without having to put out a bale of hay. Another thing is, this being stockpiled warm season grasses, is they tend to go downhill pretty quick. So a lot of that depends really on the weather. We've had a little bit of rain this fall, and that's typical for Oklahoma, especially southeast. You know, we're in the southeast corner, and so we have, pretty active fall weather. And essentially, these warm season grasses are dead. So any weather you get just really deteriorates them even farther. And in most cases, if it was really dry, I might be able to graze warm season grasses on into January. But typically, warm season grass stockpile is going to be, you might as well plan on having it grazed out by the end of December. So that's going to work out just about perfect. Warm season stockpile usually isn't quite as nutritious as some of your cool season grasses, especially like fescue. It doesn't stockpile as well. It doesn't hold that nutritional value quite as long or as well. And so because these warm season grasses do deteriorate pretty quick, a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, pretty much every time you're going to have to do some type of supplement. And it doesn't take much, you know, just maybe a couple pounds of protein per head per day, every other day. I've even done every 3 days, you know, because you remember there's research out there that, you know, every 3 days, if you can give cattle or even growing animals, heifers and steers, a boost in protein, that really helps the rumen, helps those microbes be able to digest the forage and fiber that you're giving them. Like I said, I do salt and meal quite a bit, and I'll throw a tub out here every once in a while just to do something different. Well, all right, that's pretty much it. That is how I'm strip grazing this stockpile. Just moving the wire, leapfrogging that wire, giving them a fresh strip every couple of days, and continue that until we're out. And then unfortunately it is time to start feeding hay. So as I've been doing this, I've been trying to take mental notes and just things that maybe I would change that would make me more efficient or make the cows more efficient in harvesting this stockpile. And so I also wanted to answer a few questions that I think might pop up. So probably the first thing I would do, well, there's probably really two things. The main one is water. I'm going to try to get water ideally in this field or really close to where I'm having them graze the stockpile, because that will directly correlate with how much consumption and how much of this stockpile they're going to utilize. Like I said, they're having to travel to water, which is the distance that they are traveling is well within allowable distances, but they would utilize this stockpile a lot better, I think, if I had water really close. Whether that's some type of mobile water setup, I don't know yet. Ideally, I want something more permanent here. Eventually, that's a long-term goal, but I may just have to do something mobile until I can get something more permanent set up. The other infrastructure related thing is I think I would actually might subdivide this field one more time, maybe with a high tensile wire, and that would shorten up the distance that I have to run this poly, and I could really fine tune the strip size that I'm giving them and really make them utilize it more. That combined with the water, I think I would get really good utilization out of the stockpile. A few other things are, so I mentioned that I've moved this poly, these strips, with the side-by-side, as far as, you know, taking the wire up, setting it up. And I do it by foot. I've done it by foot probably more than the side-by-side. For whatever reason, I just enjoy doing it by foot. But when I was initially started this, my four-wheeler, or ATV as some people call it, was broke down. So since then I have got a part in and got that fixed. And I actually set this poly wire up, or I took it up and set it out with the four-wheeler probably 2 times. And that's probably my favorite. That and doing it by foot are my 2 favorite ways to do it. Now, whether it's by side-by-side or ATV, I think adding something onto those, you know, modifying those so that they would hold the reel and maybe hold my posts, whatever type of posts I'm using, just right there within easy access. I think modifying one of those or both of them to really be able to set this out quick and be more efficient at it is going to be something I'm going to be doing in the future. I think that would really be handy and make setting this up just a breeze, even more than what it already is. Really, there's nothing to it already, but just adding a few modifications to maybe the four-wheeler. You know, I can see why Greg Judy and a lot of your other grazers use the ATVs to do this. It's quick, it's easy, and it just works. And so I'm going to try to answer a few questions that I think may pop up, just because I think someone may, you know, ask these. I'm using a couple of different post step-ins. I'm using the multi-wire, almost an O'Brien style, for lack of a better term. They may not have invented them, but that's certainly a popular option. These are Strain Right brand, and I have no complaints on them. They're really flexible. Now, you know, they don't get used every day. They're not out in the sun every day, so I can't speak to the longevity compared to some of the other stuff out there. But the Strain Right multi-wire step ends, I like them. I'm also using Strain Right, I think it's the Goldfoot maybe, pigtails, and those work great as well. I actually really like the pigtails. It's just, you know, I don't have a problem with the multi-wire step ends, the plastic. They can be a little bulky if you're trying to carry a bunch of them. The pigtails, they're not quite as bulky, but they're a little bit heavier. So there's pros and cons to both. And like I said, these are Strain Right pigtails also. Really good products, I think, both of them. Black Friday sale that PowerFlex was having, I actually picked up some of their pigtails, their PowerFlex brand pigtails. And I actually really like those. They're a little bit shorter. So it actually corresponds a little bit better with my fence height. I think the Strain Right pigtails are 32, 33 inches. The PowerFlex brand, I think their wire height is going to end up being closer to 29, somewhere around there. So it just lines up a little bit better with what I'm doing. And that's certainly plenty high enough for the cows and calves. My reels are Strain Right also. These haven't seen the use that probably a lot of other guys out there have used, but they're working great for me. No complaints on them so far. And the poly braid that I'm using is PowerFlex poly braid. I think it's going to be hard to find anything much better than PowerFlex poly braid. I have had this for a couple of years. I've been using it. Now, like I said, I don't intensively rotational graze like a lot of the big grazers out there. I'm looking forward to doing some of that, but I have to put some things in motion first and get some infrastructure in place before I can do that. But the little bit that I have used this PowerFlex poly braid, I really like it, and so I'm going to stick with that. Now, I do also have some Gallagher turbo braid on some smaller reels, and that seems to be pretty well made stuff as well. But you know, like I said, either one of those I think is great. I've just been using the PowerFlex and these two reels, and I like it. Now, the other thing is I do not have power on the backside of the property here, so pretty much every fence charger or energizer I have to use is solar powered. I do have a DIY solar powered charger. I have a video on that, so you know, check that out if you're interested. That is providing power to a separate section. But when I put in this high tensile fence to be able to strip graze this, I didn't have an energizer or a charger close enough to be able to tie onto it. So I picked up a Fence Master brand. They're actually made here in Oklahoma. And so far I've been really happy with that one. So you know, check those guys out if you're in the market for a new fence energizer. So I did just give the cattle a new strip here, and unfortunately they're, you know, they're on their way back from the water now. But it is looking like I have another week to 10 days left of a stockpile, and that'll put us right, well, this week I believe is, next weekend will be Christmas, and so you know, that's put me right up into my goal of what I wanted to accomplish, and that was at least to, you know, to Christmas, or even to January 1st would be ideal. But if we can make this last until the week of Christmas, or you know, next weekend, then we're dead on the money here. Yeah, so with that, I think I'm gonna end the video here. I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for stopping in. If you enjoyed this video and this type of content, be sure and hit that like button. It'd sure help us out. If you have any questions on any of this, anything that I may have missed, you know, be sure and ask it down below in the comments. I will do my best to answer it, and we'd love to hear from you anyhow. So yeah, that's it for this one. Thank y'all for sticking around. Hope y'all enjoyed that. Y'all have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.